thinking, but to understand where the source of those thoughts are coming from. But let's take it back to the science and make it very easy to understand. So talking about the ancient rishis again for a moment, what they realized was that actually the breath is the way to tap into the autonomic nervous system. Okay. Now, what's the autonomic nervous system? The autonomic nervous system is what controls all of the functions in our body that we take for granted, run on autopilot. Heart rate, immune system, digestive system, temperature, things like that. So we've been told that there is no way for us to consciously tap into this. Okay, that it's all things that run on autopilot, and the only way to influence this is with drugs, machines, or surgery. That's what the conventional scientific thinking is. However, this has been proved wrong many times over the years. One of them was in the 1970s when Swami Rama went over from India to America, and under scientific investigation, he was able to stop his heart rate for 12 seconds. He was able to raise the body temperature of one hand up and the other hand down by various degrees. He did various feats under investigation. In more recent times, like Wim Hof did an experiment where he was injected with a bacteria and was able to suppress the immune system, so the symptoms weren't so severe. And he trained other people to do it. That was another demonstration. I did it myself with healing myself of chronic illness. I tapped into the physiology and modulated the autonomic nervous system and commanded the immune system to be safe and feel safe and that everything's okay. The reason why autoimmune diseases happen is because you've been perceiving a threat in your environment for too long. Your fight mode is just way too strong, and you sense danger all the time to the point where it's turned in on itself. So this often starts with an emotion. So if your emotion that is running like the loudest emotion going on at any one time is hatred, anger, right? Envy, jealousy, fear, right? Fear is one of the strongest ones, and that's your dominant thoughts, okay? Even though you may not consciously be aware that you're feeling all this, but you're internally burning up inside. And Buddha says, if you hold on to anger, the only one getting burnt is yourself, right? So for a long time, I had this hatred of the system, hatred of the government, hatred of, my ex-girlfriend and why we broke up, and hatred of everything, and I hated God. So it was no surprise that over a while, my autonomic nervous system saw everything as a threat and turned in on itself and got confused. And if you imagine that we're just a community of cells, every cell has its own consciousness, and the membrane of the cell is the true brain. Okay, Bruce Lipton writes some good stuff on this, and that means that we're a collective consciousness of many cells in the body. Now we can command that consciousness, okay, when we get into the right state, to behave in a way we want by perceiving either danger or threat. Okay, so using the breath, okay, because the breath is the one thing that runs on autopilot, but is also what we have conscious control over. So through the conscious control over our breath, we can actually tap in to autonomic nervous system, and we can switch on stress, fear, negative emotions. We can also turn them off. We can bring up happy hormones. We can bring them down. We can actually modulate things and modulate our physiology just through the power of breath, because it's the thing we have conscious control over and runs on autopilot. So by this also understanding that when you breathe in, your heart rate goes up. When you breathe out, your heart rate goes down. Okay, we can also even influence our heart rate, right? And we can switch off stress and tap into the parasympathetic, the vagus nerve, create our own blood pressure medication, create our own sleeping pills and all this stuff, and turn on the rest and digest mode. And we can even create positive stress responses. So this is the thing, the breath is the tool. It's the thing, the mechanism that we can use if we understand how to alter our physiology. It's super powerful, it's incredible. And I truly believe the breath can set you free. if you understand this, because then with that knowledge we can go into different trance states. We can tap into our operating system of this conscious mind and actually reprogram it. We can actually manifest stuff, okay, by programming, installing commands into us to think and behave, create habits that leads us towards success rather than towards failure. And this is the power of breath. And when I say breath work is one of these things that's been like put out into the mainstream, and it's kind of confusing because there's many different styles of breath work, but the ones that are most familiar is just one aspect of everything I'm talking about. It's one modality, and usually it's this rapid breathing for like an hour or 2 hours, like holotropic and rebirthing. And the objective of those is purely for catharsis. Okay, when you rapidly breathe, okay, when you breathe through the mouth for a start, and you breathe into the chest, what happens is you stimulate the sympathetic nervous system. Okay, so when you're rapidly breathing and stimulating the sympathetic nervous system, what can happen is that it switches on the stress, dramatically switches on. Now this can have two effects. If you're somebody who has a lot of negative emotions stored up, especially fear, you can act on an anger and rage that's stored up inside. It can trigger that, re-trigger that, and create all these emotions, like bursts of emotions. Like you'll see people screaming, crying, or laughing, and like having even orgasms. So whatever emotions are like dominant or suppressed can arise from the body. So these have great applications for catharsis, but they're not going to give you like daily health benefits. In fact, they can do the opposite. It can cause too much stress and actually fry your nervous system. So holotropic and rebirthing, breath work, as I'm saying, it needs to be given respect like drugs, okay, like medicine, because you really are changing physiology very fast. So, you know, and too much of a thing can be bad. Like an overdose of drugs is going to cause damage. So we need the right dose. So that's the purpose of holotropic rebirthing. Then there's other types of breathwork, and pranayama is probably, in my opinion, the most complete and genius system of breathwork, because it's like a prescription of different breathing techniques for various functions. So I was saying, you can use breath to switch on your rest and digest mode. You can calm the nervous system down, cool the nervous system down, make your own blood pressure medication, your own anti-anxiety pills, all this stuff. That's all taken care of in pranayama. There are different techniques for that. But they also have techniques in pranayama for changing your temperature, so that you can raise your temperature, generate heat. So people who live in very extreme cold climates can generate internal heat to stay warm, okay? This can also actually help you digest food better, you know, and they also know in pranayama that even the sides that you sleep on influences the hemispheres of your brain that switched on. And that actually, when we breathe throughout the day, each nostril is going to be more predominantly active. So this switches throughout the day. And through this awareness, you can switch on the right hemisphere or the left hemisphere of the brain if you know how. And this can mean that you can actually switch on the creative part of the brain. You can switch on the concentrating part of the brain at your will. This is amazing. So using the breath and the knowledge of the respiratory system, actually we have complete control of reality. Well, not complete control, but we have a level of control over our reality. And this is what we teach in SOMA. SOMA is really it's not just focused on one breathing technique and saying that this is going to cure everything. No, it's customizing breathing techniques for what you want, for what your purposes and intentions.
I love that you kept referring to it yesterday, you and Stephen, who was facilitating with you, as the inner pharmacy. And
yes.
You can pull different aspects of your own physiology for what you need at that time.
Yes.
Just for those listening, if you're still a little bit like, well, what does this really feel like, or what can this do? Let me just give you my own 2 cents. For I've been doing your like 20-minute practice for the past month or maybe 2 months, and the first few times I would do it, I would get to the end and my eyes are closed, and I would see this white light. And I do it in my backyard. And the first few times I thought, like, did the sun just come out from behind like the cloud? And then like on the third day I was like, no, the sun does not come out at the exact same time. Every time I get this white light, and it feels very euphoric. And there's no other substance involved. It's just the breath. It's the thing I do first thing in the morning before going to the gym. And I always say to people, if you're going to meditate, you really want to meditate, but you're having a hard time shutting things off, do that first. And then at least for me, like once I finish that and I've got that kind of blissful feeling, it's really easy for me to just sit there for another, 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is, and meditate, because my state is so, I feel like my parasympathetic is tapped in and my brain is in this more blissful kind of calm, clear state. And then I can meditate if I want to.
Yes.
But I feel like, I know I run high on the old sympathetic side. Many of the high hitting, high achievers, working do. And I really appreciate the ability to turn off and go to the parasympathetic. And so that's what I wanted to share. I talked to you yesterday about if we could just share a little piece of the techniques that we learned yesterday. For example, if I'm at work and I have a really difficult patient and that patient really gets me into that fight or flight, there's a technique you told us yesterday, the 2-4 breathing, that can help change that and because when you got the patient walks out, my heart rate is just through the roof. I can feel this like kind of pressure in my chest. I'm sure my blood pressure, if I checked it, would be high. It's just this overall state that feels really uncomfortable.
Yes.
And it's hard to go then and see the next patient without some kind of reset. But there's, how do you reset in the middle of the day?
Yeah.
Well, then you told us this technique. So if you could just give us a little bit about that technique to give people just a glimpse of how powerful this can be.
Yeah, really simple. And this is why breathwork is so simple. If you just like prepare to just practice and go with it. And it's almost too simple, and that's why some people maybe think it's like not possible. But the simple understanding is that when you breathe out, you actually stimulate parasympathetic nervous system. When you breathe in, you stimulate the sympathetic. So if you breathe out longer than you breathe in, okay, you're going to start stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system. So literally, the rhythm I love is this 2-4 rhythm, where you breathe in for 2 beats and out for 4. So let's say like a beat is like a heartbeat at rest, which is 60 beats per minute. So you can actually put music on that has 60 beats per minute. Our music is timed to like 60 or 120 beats per minute, and which is double the time, so you just adjust. And when you breathe in that rhythm, you can even just tap a beat like this. So if you go in, 2, out, 2, 3, 4. So it's you can count actually the beats. Now, if you do that for a few minutes, you saw in the machine, it was just within a minute, people's stress. There was one lady whose stress was like right up, on the heart rate monitor. She was on a ratio of 4, where a sympathetic nervous system was like 4 times dominant to the parasympathetic, and literally within a minute, she switched, where the parasympathetic nervous system was more dominant. And just in a minute of just practicing that rhythm, you're going to switch off the stress. And actually, you may start getting saliva building up. You may start feeling digestive enzymes moving around in your body, and you might actually start feeling a bit more hungry, and you might even cool down. Okay, because this breathing actually cools you down, cools the nervous system down, and you may even feel like you're in sleep if you do it for long enough. And it's a great way to get sleep. Just literally 2-4 rhythms. So if you're feeling stressed, just sit there and count. And just keep doing that over and over for a minute, 2 minutes, and you'll calm down. You won't be stressed anymore.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
It's a very valuable tool. I was telling Niraj last night after spending, the day in the breathwork workshop, there was this 4 a.m. thing that sounded like gunshots. And that was like, I was woken right up from sleep and my heart rate's going a mile a minute. And I was like, all right, 2-4 breathing, 2-4 breathing.
Yeah.
Here we go. It was like the universe is like, here, you want to practice that stuff?
Yeah,
You just
yeah. Exactly.
I love how that worked. And the fact that I fell back asleep at all after, maybe 10 minutes or so of doing these different techniques is a miracle, because I know that I was in extreme fight or flight, thinking that there's like somebody running through my neighborhood with a gun, because I'd heard like a car screech, and then we later found out to probably be fireworks, but it sounded like gunfire. Not that I live in a place that has a lot of gunfire, but still, you don't know at 4 a.m. what's happening, and my heart's like, and somehow 10 minutes later I'm back asleep, and for me that was a relatively miracle in that situation.
Exactly.
So I appreciate those techniques very much. Thank you so much for sharing your own journey and these techniques. And I'm really just thrilled to be able to bring the concept of these breathwork techniques to the audience, because I think this is going to be something that's, like you said, it's gaining a little bit more mainstream acceptance, but it's great that people know, okay, there's a whole variety of things. And until I attended the workshop, I mean, I had been doing Kapalabhati breathing forever, not knowing, does it increase sympathetic? Does it increase parasympathetic? I'm not sure. It's just the only technique I knew.
Yep.
But I would get, I could still get that kind of that light feeling whenever I was doing breath holds. So I thought, well, it's doing something, but I wasn't quite sure what. And so it's great if people don't know breathwork, that they've started with this primer that you've given them, so that they know, okay, this is like you said, use with caution, like with anything else. Pick the right one for your condition. Yeah. Can you tell people where to find you?
Yeah. So you can go to somabreath.com. We have a webinar, and I show you all these fancy tricks on how to raise your heart rate, lower your heart rate, so you're you look like a yogi, superhuman yogi to your friends. And you can also get a taste of SOMA. You can get a dose of SOMA and experience it. And there's a webinar for that. I also have a website called renegadepharmacist.com. On there I have like lots of information, resources and recipes of things that I've picked up over the years. And also you'll learn about how I healed myself from this chronic illness. And I have like some protocols on there that you can do. And actually, like, the goal of all of this is actually to make your default state better over time. Your default state, what I mean by that is when you're not doing anything, right? When you're not taking anything, you're not drinking coffee, you're not taking medicines, or you're not meditating, you're not doing yoga, not dancing. It's just when you're at normal state, is to elevate that state, all right? And the way you do that is being really comfortable with your present moment. Because our present moment is influenced by two things. Your past. The past is where we store all the we have all these negative emotions from. It's where we have the guilt, envy, jealousy, all those things are things that are from events that have happened in the past. Okay? And the future is the other source. And that's where we have anxiety, we have fears and things like that, of things that are going to happen in the future. So by using breath and SOMA, we teach you how to make peace with the past and to not have fear of the future, and to be really present with what you're doing. And this one breathing technique that you're going to find at SOMA Breath really helps you do that. And that, in effect, will make your default state better. So whatever you do in life, the idea that you want to have is, wherever you go down, is find a way to make your default state better, where you're not dependent on anything else. Okay? I mean, the breath is obviously something that nobody's going to take away from you, so you can practice this at any time. And you'll be surprised that you can actually get over things in the past and have less fear of the future simply by learning how to breathe in the right way.
Well, that's an amazing gift in and of itself.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people in the quitter sphere have a lot of those future-based fears.
Yes.
And if anything that can make your quitting transition easier by taking some of those fears out and bringing your state to a more calm but elevated place, really appreciated. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And for everybody else out there, until next time, happy quitting. Okay. And we're stopping and we're saving, and oh, thank God, Reaper just did its thing, and we're good.
Good.
Yes.
Cool.
I kept checking back down, like, you know how the screen goes off after a while, and I was just like, come on, keep working. Oh, do you mind if we snap a picture?
Yeah.
Okay.
How was